been reported to have been recovered from the quarry pond.
Oh, I didn't know that it was ever in there.
Yeah, and it's one of the ones that they have actually been able to save it. It no longer is in the cemetery because it is rather small, but it is at the Tinley Park Historical Society.
She's just a sweet baby.
She's 13 days old. We're going to start kind of launching into some of the more well-known apparitions, as well as some of the other ones that have been reported, but not by a ton of people.
Not the most well-known, not the most popular ones.
No, and also something that I have tried so hard to find evidence from anywhere else that's infuriating. The first death that has possibly been recorded in the area, once again, obviously, it was during a time that records weren't really being kept as fastidiously as we would now, because everyone's on the grid and you kind of know when someone dies.
So we're talking about the 1800s, yeah.
There was a farmer that was...
Oh, yay!
Yeah. He's one of the first reported deaths are on that property, but he was not buried in Bachelor's. And the reason he wasn't buried is because as he was plowing his area, something had spooked the horse, and the horse bolted, and he got tangled in the reins and was dragged into what's been reported to be a slough, but is most commonly decided that it's the quarry pond. People that don't know the backstory of that will oftentimes report that they saw a horse with a plow attached to it pulling something out of the quarry pond into the cemetery or across Midlothian Turnpike. If you look at the quarry pond, it's really, really much more recessed than the actual highway that runs right past it. You can look into the cemetery as you're driving past it.
The highway is quite elevated. There's a wall.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's no chance of, if there's ever a flood, there's no chance, unless it's a biblically ridiculous flood, of it actually flooding across that area from the quarry pond.
Yes.
For that apparition to show up, and it has shown up quite a bit, it means that it would have to go up a pretty sheer retaining wall onto highway that also has a barricade. In addition to him, from some of the documents that I had read, there obviously was a Native American presence in Illinois as well as the entire United States, as they were the people, that lived here before anyone.
Oh, there was a whole indigenous culture?
I know, right? Surprising.
What?
The thing about the presence of Native Americans that were living in this particular area is that a lot of them had viewed it, before the settlers had gotten there, as a bad place and of something that had an ooky sort of energy to it. So a lot of them didn't stay on those grounds.
Them woods. It's them woods, man.
It's the woods. The woods are a bit tricky.
The woods are a lot tricky. Let's be honest about that.
There is an apparition seen by a few different people of a Native American man with a horse. And that's one of the coolest things, is when Ty and I were talking about this, as we do actually weirdly often talk about Bachelors because it's very near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yeah.
But he had told me that he had seen a picture with a horse and it looked like it was laying its head over a Native American.
And that was not something that I had found online. That was something that somebody who I knew had shown me that they had gotten when they were at the cemetery.
Exactly. And I almost lost my damn mind because, once again, I've replaced math skills with completely useless knowledge about paranormal sites.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know anything about the history, so I had no idea about that story, and you were so excited by it, and it was such a big deal, but I didn't understand why it was a big deal.
Right, because that was one, obviously, at any point in time, if someone's living on a particular area, more likely than not, they're going to die on that particular area, especially in these time periods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Police officers, people that are generally pretty well known to be very into the facts, have reported actually quite a few different anomalies that are happening in the cemetery as well as on the road beside the cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And this kind of ties into the farmer because, and this is where Capone kind of ties back in, because of the widely held belief that they were, giving the concrete shoes to people that they wanted, or just dumping bodies in the quarry pond. There's supposedly a hunchbacked collaborative sort of situation that's happening with a number of other bodies that does go from the quarry pond specifically across the road that police officers have seen and have reported.
What? I've never even heard that.
I heard something about it, but it wasn't the hunchback.
Are they seen crawling across the road or walking or both?
Walking. In the 1970s, a Forest Preserve officer on night patrol saw an apparition of a horse emerge from the water pulling a plow behind it. That's additional information to what has already been reported. The plow had been steered by an apparition of an older man. It came out of the quarry, crossed the road, and it went in front of a car. In addition to a number of things coming out of the quarry pond, people have said that they've seen a two-headed ghost.
Many people?
Many people.
Oh, okay.
I know. They've seen a two-headed ghost coming out of the quarry, as well as the slough. You know what I'm talking about?
Like the little creek there?
Yeah, the little creek. Remember how we talked about them, people maybe doing some sort of ritual in the cemetery besides just desecrating graves?
Yeah, because as if that was not already bad enough.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times when people came in the next day to walk through, they would find evidence of what they considered to be black magic or occult ritual. Inscriptions and elaborate writings were carved or painted onto trees and gravestones. Sometimes they were on the ground. A lot of times they would find animals that had been mutilated.
Don't hurt the animals.
But they'd always be smaller animals, especially chickens, obviously. And cats. Sometimes bones would be strewn throughout the entirety of the cemetery, near the pond, in the pond, or even back in the woods in the natural circle that forms really close to Ridgeland. It ends at Ridgeland, and then Justamere Road is the next street up.
I'm just trying to highlight the fact that there's a road called Justamere Road.
Oh, I know. It's my mother's favorite road. I've told her several times that I'm going to steal the sign for her.
Pay no attention to it. Pay no mind. It's Justamere Road.
Well, because it's only Justamere Road for about a mile, and it turns into Oak Park. Gravestones would often be knocked over, destroyed, sprayed with paint, broken, or stolen. Obviously, we talked about the graves getting dug up. In 2009... a person had gone with the intent to capture one of the apparitions on film, specifically one of the most famous apparitions that happens in the cemetery. And as they were setting up all of their equipment to do so, they had heard a noise behind them. And they had turned around to see a yellow man by the Shields Monument.
Which part of the cemetery is Shields in?
So remember where the old gate is?
Yeah.
So if you look at the old gate, where all the monuments are grouped now.
Yeah.
Shields is directly to the back fence, that larger one, but not the Fulton-sized one. So the yellow man was seen by the Shields plot. The person had turned around to see the apparition in 1930s clothing that had a yellow hue. This person, after they reported what they call the yellow man, now in addition to the orbs and the number of different colors of orbs, there's usually a yellow one as well.
Are there any theories as to why it's yellow, though? No.
Black hooded men that aren't also associated with the monks. And there's also, and I missed it a little bit earlier because I forgot to say about it, but people often see yellow eyes in the cemetery.
Glowing yellow eyes? Or
yellow eyes. It just says yellow eyes. Obviously, there is wildlife there. Because of the animal population, my brain logically says it was probably some sort of flash on an animal's eye, but who knows? There's a picture floating around right now that I can only find references to. There's a couple little blog things. I had heard it on another podcast and was shocked that that was something that apparently has been being said, that there is a wolf baboon creature or a wolf gorilla creature that supposedly there's a picture of. I have found zero to back it up except for the fact that someone was like, hey, I have a picture of it. Apparently other people have also seen this picture, but where it is online, I don't know.
It's kind of like the Babadook, but it's like the Baba Woof.
It's so good. I don't know. I don't know if it's a real thing.
I've never heard that ever.
Yeah. A lot of people seem to think it's some sort of amalgam of different creatures or demons that are in the woods, but it was seen basically on the outside of the cemetery when someone was taking a photo of their friend. Some people see just a wolf, some people just see a shape, and some people apparently see a baboon wolf.
It's just weird to me that something that people believe may have manifested from entities that already existed within the cemetery and woods for a very long time would all of a sudden just now be getting noticed? Why have we never heard about it before? If the energy's been there forever.
That's the same thing with the Yellow Man. The Yellow Man wasn't reported until 2009. And I don't disbelieve that as much as I disbelieve this.
I'm kind of on board with that.
Yeah. I mean, we're not that close to Argon Labs, and I'm pretty sure they're not breeding baboon wolves. If you have access to this picture, please send it to us. I can't find it at all. The reason that this is one of the most well-known haunted cemeteries, aside from the fact that it has a predominance of apparitions over EVPs, the biggest thing is that the spirits in the cemetery seem to be intelligent spirits. Not because of a residual haunting, it's not because of something they did on a day-to-day, but they do respond to a lot of people that are in the cemetery.
I wouldn't be surprised because there are so many different energies at work there, and there are so many different things that people see. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some residual energy.
In addition to the Yellow Man, there have also been what's been reported to be monks that walk through the cemetery.
I have heard about this, yes.
Yeah, and I had heard about it when I was younger. An old friend of mine who is a notorious liar.
I know the one.
She had told me how she couldn't possibly go to Bachelor's because the first time that she ever went there, the monks that would walk through the cemetery had caught her. Ghosts do that now. And they sliced open her knees and made her kneel on lemons.
Oh my, just
I know.
Just shut the fuck up.
I know.
What?
You know, the slow blinks.
To my knowledge, I can't figure why there would be monks in the area there.
And I have no idea, honestly. So monks are said to walk along the cemetery grounds. Some people have said that they've seen them in the woods. I have no historical backing on why. The only thing I can assume is that they may have been there as a part of a rite towards the people that were being buried. So in addition to the monks, there are quite a few different orbs that are seen, and also things that look like they are smoke clouds coming from different areas of the cemetery.
I have heard that. I've also heard that there are like flashing lights people see.
Yes. Normally the flashing lights only happen in the cemetery.
Oh, I heard the opposite.
There's where there might be a difference. Obviously, everyone has their personal experiences. What I've read about it is that the flashing lights only come from the cemetery, which my brain wants to explain away from someone having a bad flashlight and or trying to put the flashlight on but not attract attention.
One of the stories that I had heard about Bachelors was that one of the settlers that was living there had gone out into the woods at night and thought he was being attacked by somebody, or that somebody was approaching him aggressively, and he swung at the man with his axe, and it turned out to be his daughter and killed her.
I have never heard that.
I saw that. This is TV that we're talking about, but I had seen that on one of those reenactments and talk about all of the different hauntings in an area.
I've never read that information. Doesn't mean it's not true.
It's good to focus on things that are backed up by data, though.
Exactly. Anything that could be finitely tied to something historic.
I noticed something. There's this weird sectioned off area with these stones. The, quote, witch's grave. Have you ever heard a story about that? Or is that maybe just a legend that people had fabricated?
I've never heard that, so my assumption is that it is a legend.
I don't even know if they're stones. They're like long, kind of like bars.
Oh, no. Okay.
But they're in the ground?
Yes. No. Now I understand what you're talking about. If what we're talking about is what I think we're talking about, where there's the two concrete-looking lines next to each other near the fence, used to be an area where it would let that filter
like a drain?
Drainage ditch.
Yeah.
So the orbs that are seen within the cemetery, as well as the clouds, don't stay contained in the actual cemetery. They go across the highway. It's kind of funny that my roommate just got home now, and when we asked him if he had any stories, he said no, but I have a friend that had gotten run off the road by a ghost car, because that was the next thing I was going to talk about.
Yeah, the timing was crazy.
Yeah, it's incredibly appropriate. In the cemetery across the quarry pond and also on the highway, oftentimes there are orbs that are seen The difference in the orbs that are normally seen on the highway, some